Mentioning what an incredible,
Listen up.
How incredibly proud I am of our medical team assembled behind me, and the honor it's been to care for the president over these last 24 hours here at Walter Reed. He's receiving outstanding multidisciplinary care, the state of the science for coronavirus infection. We are monitoring him very closely for any evidence of complications from either the coronavirus illness or the therapies that we are prescribing to make him better. We have monitored his cardiac function, his kidney function, his liver function. All of those are normal. And the president this morning is not on oxygen, not having difficulty breathing or walking around the White House medical unit upstairs. He's in exceptionally good spirits. And in fact, as we were completing our multidisciplinary rounds this morning, the quote he left us with was, "I feel like I could walk out of here today," and that was a very encouraging comment from the president. Moving forward, I'll go ahead and introduce Dr. Garibaldi, who will talk about some of our therapeutics and the plan of care for today. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Dooley, and I'd like to echo the sentiment from the entire team. What an honor and a privilege it is to be part of this multidisciplinary unit to care for the president. About 48 hours ago, the president received a special antibody therapy directed against the coronavirus, and we're working very closely with the company to monitor him in terms of that outcome. Yesterday evening, he received his first dose of IV remdesivir, and our plan is to continue a 5-day treatment course for remdesivir. And the big plan for today, since he's in such great spirits and doing well, is to encourage him to eat, to drink, to stay hydrated, to be up out of bed, and to be working and doing the things that he needs to do to get well. I'll refer Dr. Connolly to any questions.
Thanks, Brian. It's important to note the president's been fever-free for over 24 hours. We remain cautiously optimistic, but he's doing great. With that, one other note. It should be clear that he's got plenty of work to get done from the Chief of Staff, and he's doing it. With that, if there's a couple questions about the president's health in the last couple days.
Sure. Can you tell us the president's oxygen saturation level, please?
Yeah, so the last saturation that we had up walking around, he was about 96%.
He's receiving no, he has not received any supplemental oxygen?
He's not on oxygen right now, that's right.
He has not received any at all?
He's not needed any this morning today at all. That's right.
Do you have an estimated date when he might be discharged?
Well, I don't want to put a hard date on that. He's doing so well, but with a known course of the illness, days 7 to 10, we get really concerned about the inflammatory phase 2. Given that we provided some of these advanced therapies so early in the course, a little bit earlier than most of the patients we know and follow, it's hard to tell where he is on that course. And so every day we're evaluating, does he need to be here? What does he need? And where's he going?
Can you see as a probability that he will need supplemental oxygen going forward?
I don't want to put a percentage on that, but right now all indicators are that he'll remain off of oxygen going forward.
And in terms of like blood clots, pneumonia, bacterial infection, what do you see as the risk on that front?
Well, we know that all of them are risks associated with this condition. He is receiving all of the standard of care and beyond per routine, international COVID protocols. So we're monitoring for all of that, but at the moment, there's no cause for concern.
You said he's fever-free now. What was his fever when he had one, sir?
I'd rather not give any specific numbers, but he did have a fever Thursday into Friday, and since Friday morning, he's had none.
Okay. And what was the date?
On top of the other antibodies.
I'm sorry?
Why remdesivir on top of the antibodies?
So remdesivir works a little bit differently than the antibodies. We're maximizing all aspects of his care, attacking this virus, multi-pronged approach. As the president, I didn't want to hold anything back. If there was any possibility that it would add value to his care and expedite his return, I wanted to take it. And the team agreed, and that's what we proceeded.
Doctor, what was the date of the president's last negative test?
I'm not going to get into all the testing going back, but he and all the staff routinely are tested, and so.
Doctor, what is the PPE protocol for President Trump receiving visitors and doctors?
It's the same as any hospital has. We have an area that's that clean that you put your equipment on, and then beyond that, everybody is fully gowned up, masks, gloves. We're protecting ourselves and him.
Have you done a screen? Has there been any sign of any lung damage whatsoever?
We are following all of that. We do daily ultrasounds. We do daily lab work. The team is tracking all of that.
Has there been any sign of damage, sir?
I'm not going to go into specifics of what the findings of any of
We're just
that
going to get down
are.
on one thing. Has he ever been on supplemental oxygen?
Right now, he is not on
I understand.
oxygen.
I know you keep saying
That's
right now, but should we read into the fact that he had been previously?
Yesterday and today, he was not on oxygen.
So he has not been on it during his COVID treatment?
He's not on oxygen right now.
Has hydroxychloroquine been considered as a viable treatment option for the president?
We discussed it. He asked about it. He's not on it now.
And in terms of symptoms, has he also experienced difficulty breathing?
No, he has not. Never did. He had a little cough. He had the fever. More than anything, he's felt run down.
Who is handling contact tracing? Is that the White House or CDC?
The White House Medical Unit, in conjunction with in collaboration with CDC and local state and health departments, are conducting all contact tracing per CDC guidelines.
When was the positive diagnosis made? You said 72 hours. That would be that Wednesday.
Yeah. So Thursday afternoon, following the news of a close contact, is when we repeated testing. And given kind of clinical indications, I had a little bit more concern, and that's when late that night we got the PCR confirmation that he was.
Is there any clarity on how he became infected?
I'm not going to go into that. As far as his care, it's irrelevant.
Or when he became infected?
Yeah, we're not going to go into that. We're just tracking his clinical course and providing the best care we can.
Will President Trump have to stay at Walter Reed to get the 5-day remdesivir treatment?
We've discussed that right now. If he needs all 5 days, that will likely be the course. But again, every day we're reviewing with the team his needs for being here. And as soon as he gets to the point where it's not a requirement, he may still need some care, but if we can provide that downtown at the house, then we will transition at that point. As long as it's safe and appropriate, the team agrees.
In addition to his weight, does he have any other risk factors that make him more at risk for sort of a severe case?
Well, not particularly. I mean, he's 74, he's male, and he is slightly overweight. Other than that, he's very healthy. His cholesterol is great, his blood pressure is great, he's not on medication for that. He's up and active, and you saw his activity the days leading up to, the long hours and everything else. He's able to handle it.
Can you provide other vitals like heart rate, blood pressure, and temperature?
So his heart rate is in the 70s to 80s. His blood pressure has remained where it's historically been during our physicals. 110 to 120 systolic. He's great. It's never budged. I've had no concerns there.
So why was the decision made to transfer him here?
Because he's the president of the United States.
And obviously, if doctors have found that the prone position is helpful for COVID, has he been in that at all?
No, he asked about that. He did, Thursday into Friday. He's been briefed by the task force and all the scientists for months, and he brought that up, as we were discussing his cough, and at the time his oxygen levels were okay, and we didn't feel like we needed to do it. We came up here, we discussed it with the team as well. We consider all options, but he has not needed any of that.
Why wasn't the First Lady admitted as well?
The First Lady's doing great. Thanks for asking. She has no indication for hospitalization, advanced therapy. She's convalescing at home. Thank you.
I'm going to try to pin you down one more time. I know you said there's no oxygen yesterday.
He's not on oxygen.
But did he receive
today?
Did he receive any on Thursday?
And what's today? Saturday? No, Thursday.
Okay, no Thursday, no Friday, no Saturday. That's fine.
So
that was why we were confused.
Thursday, no oxygen, none at this moment. Yeah, and yesterday with the team, while we were all here, he was not on oxygen.
So has the president actually been admitted as a patient to this hospital?
The president is a patient at Walter Reed National Military Medical Center.
Is he on any steroids? Yes, thank
Do you
you.
ask that
Thank you very much.
last question?
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, thank you.
All right, well, it looks like an abrupt end to that press conference involving Dr. Sean Conley there, the president's doctor. You see the other members of the medical team. We also heard from the Dr. Sean Dooley and Dr. Brian Garibaldi among the doctors who spoke. Sanjay Gupta with us now. Very interesting because there does seem to be a discrepancy on the whole timeline. The doctor's saying within 72 hours, but it was, yesterday, 1 a.m. when the world learned about the president's testing positive for COVID-19. So what did you hear there? What struck you as interesting? Dr. Conley underscoring that the president is not on oxygen now. He kept saying now, but then he also said not yesterday, and that he's doing exceptionally well.
Yeah, Fred, it was almost more about what he wouldn't answer versus what he did, right? The timeline struck me as well. So he said it's been 72 hours since his diagnosis. So here we are on Saturday morning. So, 73 days ago, is that when the diagnosis was? Because as you point out, we didn't hear about it till 1 o'clock in the morning on Friday. I'm getting my days mixed up as well. But the point is that doesn't jive with what we've heard for the diagnosis.
Right.
Sorry,
he also,
you can hear me.
Oh, yeah. I know the audio was a little funny there. Go ahead. Yeah.
The oxygen thing was really relevant. I mean, this is not a small point. And the reporters, whoever was asking the questions, followed up several times. Mm-hmm. Was he on supplemental oxygen or not at any time? And for some crazy evasive sort of thing, the doctor just wasn't answering that. And I just found it really odd to say that. I mean, was he specifically told, do not admit that the president was on oxygen? Because again, this is a medically relevant fact here. And then the issue that we raised before the briefing started about testing. And again, the reporter asked the right question, was when did he last have a negative test? And again, and he would not answer that question either. Even at the end, right when they ended the press conference, someone asked about some of the therapeutics like steroids, and again, no answer. So it's really hard, Fred, when you have these situations, because once you start to detect that someone's being evasive with you, it does throw into question everything else as well. I've interviewed so many of these doctors taking care of the president, and it's always this sort of thing. Ronnie Jackson did the same thing. Would not be forthright about information. You really had to pin down, come back over and over and over again. This was not I'm glad they did this press conference, but it wasn't really helpful. Yeah. And I'm not sure how much of it, frankly, we can totally rely on in terms of this information.
It almost seems like the objective was really to convey everything's all right, as opposed to conveying, filling in the blanks that so many would have about the president's condition, the urgency of getting him to Walter Reed. His answer was, yeah, he's the president of the United States. What do people who are around the president need to know? Perhaps there's information that we need to impart, and we didn't receive it there. So I think I'm hearing from you, there's a little disappointment in what was not heard today from these doctors.
Yeah, was he on supplemental oxygen? Has he had any lab tests that would show concern about his heart? Someone asked about, has he had evidence of lung damage? And he said, well, he's gotten ultrasounds. That's not an answer to the question, right? I mean, you don't need to be a doctor to know that's not an answer to the question. Does he have viral pneumonia? I mean, these are, if you're going to come out and brief the public about the health of someone, in this case, the president, those are very reasonable questions that were being asked, but unfortunately not answered. Yeah,
Dr. Conley also saying, the president's up and walking around. He's going to be able to do the things that he needs to do. Gloria, you talked about, Gloria Borgia, you talked about the importance of transparency. That was lacking a lot of transparency. Sure. Instead, it was send the message that whether it's the president or his team or this doctor really wanted to hit home, which is everything's fine. He was in here out of an abundance of caution, but we are going to keep him here. Possibly he's going to have, more treatments of remdesivir, but he didn't necessarily definitively answer that about the 5-day treatment, just that if he needs it, we have it here for him.
Right. I mean, the one interesting thing he said in terms of describing the president's condition is that he quoted the president this morning saying, I feel like I could walk out of here. Yes. Which means that the president doesn't have a fever anymore. He feels a little better. But the whole timeline is still curious to me, because they said 72 hours since diagnosis. And then, so the question is, you know, just where is he in the course of this disease, which we know, Sanjay knows this better than we do, can go up and down and up and down and then go down very quickly. And his answer was that since we provided all these advanced therapeutics to the president, you know, they front loaded everything. Since we provided that, it's just hard to tell where he is in the course. And does that mean, and Sanjay can answer this, does that mean that they don't want to let up? It's hard to tell if they were to remove, you know, the monoclonal antibody, what would happen? You know, I think they need him there to continue to observe him and decide just when they pull him off some of this stuff and when they don't, and where he is in the course of this awful disease.
That's right. CNN's Caitlin Collins at the White House, and Caitlin, you know, you couldn't help but be, you know, caught off guard, and it made us all, you know, come to attention when we heard 72-hour. I mean, this timeline now is not making any sense. And, you know, was that an error that the doctor made, or is this revealing about when indeed they had a positive test of COVID for the president?
Well, it would be really concerning if the president's doctor had an error with the president's timeline of when he diagnosed. So we're going to side with the doctor here, who says it's been 72 hours since the president was diagnosed and 48 hours since he started that experimental treatment, that drug antibody cocktail that we were talking about yesterday. Both of those things are before we even knew that the president had tested positive for coronavirus, because that's only about 36 hours since we found that out, Fred. That was about 1 a.m. Early Friday morning. Obviously, it was right after we had gone off the air briefly when the president tweeted that he had tested positive for coronavirus. So this calls every single thing that the White House has said into question. If he was diagnosed with coronavirus 72 hours ago and yet continued on with his normal schedule and went to a fundraiser in New Jersey knowing that he had coronavirus, which if you are going on what his own physician is saying, that is the timeline that matches up. That is a stunning statement that we just got from the physician, who would not answer questions, as Sanjay was pointing out, about the current status with what's going on right now, about the fever and the oxygen. But this timeline, it may be the most stunning thing that he revealed. And I don't know if it was inadvertent, if he wasn't aware of when we actually found out that the president had coronavirus, but we didn't find out until Thursday night that Hope Hicks had tested positive. Of course, she had tested positive about 12 hours earlier that morning. That's when the White House learned of her diagnosis. But he is saying that the president tested positive around the same time, or that's when they learned. So it is going to raise massive questions about why, if the president tested positive for coronavirus 72 hours ago, and we only found out about it 36 hours ago, and no one has felt the need to clear that up, it is going to raise major questions about everything that we know about what's been happening here in the last few days at the White House and the president's health.
Right. This has just revealed another big potential problem. Joining us right now, also anchor of Reliable Sources, Brian Stelter. So, Brian, while the doctor's objective was to paint this relatively, you know, rosy, positive, you know, view of how the president is doing, a new problem has just arisen. This timeline. Why would the public learn about this positive test of COVID-19 and the doctor says, actually, we have been doing treatment this long since 72 hours ago he was diagnosed? How big of a problem is this?
Yeah, this credibility problem just became worse. This credibility gap just became even bigger. And that's because of these timeline questions. It matters because the president was in front of dozens of people on Wednesday and Thursday. We know it for a fact. And if he had been diagnosed on Wednesday, this is a massive scandal. It also, of course, causes even more concerns about his health if he has been sick now for this period of time. This did not seem like a real medical news conference, Fred. It seemed like a White House press conference, the sort of political press conference we are accustomed to, where there are more questions and answers and lots of no comments. And that is very troubling. The public should see a medical press conference where every detail is shared. At one point, Dr. Conley was at...
Hi there, as the Lakers see...
Can't believe that. Let's see.
Central Europe. Thanks for watching. Stay with CNN. Bye for now.
You could say a candidate who is really working hard and is traveling and is working at all ends of the clock.
그래서 여러 상 카메라를 사용함으로써
Market reaction on making money.
The big issue there continues. California is set to hit a grim milestone, not because of COVID. Nearly 4 million acres have burned in that state, as forecasters say there may be a break in the winds today. Matt Finn's back on the ground live in Napa County. We have not forgotten about the story. It's a big one, Matt. How is it going now into the weekend?
Well, Bill, the good news this morning, that red flag warning, which is the high winds, has expired, so that helps firefighters today. But overall, here in Napa County, America's premier wine region, it has been a catastrophic year for so many livelihoods. Cabernet vineyards like this one will be a total loss because of the fire heat and weeks of smoke. Tasting rooms here in Napa had been closed for months because of the pandemic, and then back-to-back fires and weeks of smoke and ash. Wine experts and winemakers we've talked to over the past couple of days here say each vineyard owner stands to lose millions of dollars because of ruined grapes. And across Napa County, a staggering 189 commercial buildings have burned, including iconic properties like the Castle Winery and the Michelin-rated restaurant at Meadowwood. 153 family homes were destroyed, and sadly the fire is still on the move this morning. Here are some people we talked to about the devastation.
Well, between the president being sick, but he's not in too bad of shape, it sounds like this morning, it sounds to me like that the fires is still taking first place in devastating the foliage over out west. And I guess by what I'm looking at and interpreting, it's just a matter of time before wine is probably fixing to skyrocket pertaining to its prices going off the shelf. So if you're a wine drinker and you like wine, you may want to consider stocking up on some wine, because if it has devoured as many vineyards as what I'm thinking that it has this year, I'm going to say the wine industry is fixing to regurgitate all this in regards to the prices going up. That's just my opinion. I may be wrong about that. I don't know. But it's good news on the front pertaining to the president and the first lady of them not being worse off than what they actually could be. So thank God for that. Hopefully the winds will succeed, and hopefully they'll be able to get some sort of a stronghold on these fires out west that is causing so much devastation in so many different people's lives.
I think the level of destruction of personal property and the number of people that have been driven from their homes is something that we've never seen before.
Can you put any words to it? What have you seen, experienced?
This morning, the glass fire in Napa and Sonoma counties has grown to 63,000 acres, and it's just 10% contained. We shadowed some firefighters in the mountains where the fire has spread as they try to hold that fire line. And there is better news to the north, near Redding, California, where the Zogg fire has grown to 56,000 acres, but is now 57% contained. Major progress there. And here in Napa County, less winds is good for the fire, but it means that all the smoke will continue to settle here today. Bill.
Big story. Thanks, Matt Finn. We're watching it for you. Thanks from Napa Valley. Several senators you may know by now have tested positive for COVID over the past 24 hours. They will quarantine. Mike Lee is one of them. Ron Johnson, another from Wisconsin. The Senate this hour now announcing it will adjourn for the next 2 weeks plus until October 19th. Meanwhile, when we come back, we'll head to Delaware for the latest on the Biden campaign that's doing what it is doing now in light of the president's diagnosis. Back to the campaign trail we roll, 31 days from a national election. Stay tuned. Special coverage continues.
Encouraging that the prognosis looks good. I am worried. I share the concern over a few things. First of all, that the White House may not have been candid about the president's condition when they knew that he had the virus or may very well have the virus. and that the president may have exposed people in the White House, his own staff, his own security, people from the Secret Service, supporters of his in Bedminster or at other events, may have knowingly exposed them or exposed them knowing there was a good chance that he was carrying the virus. And that would not be obviously a responsible thing for the President of the United States to do. I'm also struck by just how unnecessary, tragic and unnecessary all of this is. The president has the best care and protection of anyone in the country, and this was avoidable. Just as the sad reality is that the fact that we have millions of Americans infected was avoidable. If we had followed scientific advice and evidence, and we had worn masks, and masks had been made into a political issue, so much of this misery around the country could have been spared, and the president himself and the first lady may have been spared if there was more adherence to what the scientists and the epidemiologists and the experts have been telling us for months and months. So it's a terrible tragedy. I also have concerns about what it means for our national security that I'm happy to discuss.
Yeah, and we are going to get to that. Before those details, what about when you were informed? You're a member of the Gang of Eight, of course, those with important national security and intelligence standing. Were you, Congressman, informed that the president was going to Walter Reed Medical Center?
No, I wasn't. And, I think most of us learned of the president's illness, the way we learn about much from this White House in a presidential tweet. In terms of his going to Walter Reed, that's also not something that we had any advance notice of. But more concerning, frankly, is the fact that there's still so many open questions about not just the president's health, but also when people were aware that he was carrying the virus. And what steps were taken or not taken to inform the public, but also inform people around him. It is vitally important that the president be transparent about this, that the White House be transparent about it.
And that was one of the reasons why that I made mention that he should be charged with reckless endangerment, because he had become so reckless in how that they obviously thought that they was invincible, that the bug wasn't going to hit them. I don't know if he was drinking goat's milk or taking some pills or what the deal was, but, we're all human beings. And we're all susceptible to the same thing, because this virus is not prejudice. It does not care whether or not you're rich or poor, or you're a president of the United States, or you're a hobo out on the streets. It don't care. It is not something to play with. And that's what the people have tried, the scientists and the doctors have been trying to tell Mr. President the whole time, and it's went through one and not the other. So maybe this was a wake-up call in regards to the President of the United States. I don't know. Good luck to all of us as we end this session. Coming from the Windmill Ministries here at 291 Thompson Road, Sharon, Tennessee, zip code 38255. Thanks again for listening and for allowing for us to be a part of your lives.